Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from round 2 of the 2025 US Chess Championship. On the white end, Grigoriy Oparin playing against Hans Niemann. All right, the opening we have Nimzo-Indian Defense, classical. Now, in the round 1 game I covered yesterday, Caruana versus Oparin, we had this same position. In that game, play continued with d5, bishop was questioned, we saw the exchange on c3 and the b pawn did the recapturing. The move from there was c7 to c6, just one step. Note the difference in this game. We have first castles, d pawn remains uncommitted. Same story in this game, questioning the bishop. Same story with the b pawn, recapturing. Same story with the d pawn. And this is the first main difference with this game. The c pawn goes 2 steps. Play from here is with e3. In Caruana versus Oparin, we saw this bishop out and about, pinning the knight. Forget about it in this game with the pawn committed to e3. Now, if white is capturing on c5, it's no problem. Develop the knight, look to quickly round it up. e3 in this game. Knight c6. White now decides to take on c5. It won't be the knight that will be tracking this pawn down so easily. A nice consistent follow-up to this capture away from the center. White doesn't have as much control over e5. e5 on board. Okay. a4, bishop g4, and bishop a3. So my first thought when I saw bishop a3 was, okay, watch over this pawn. If there's pressure on it, okay, it's supported. There's another detail to note. I believe with bishop a3, white is already anticipating a possible d4 move. This idea to undermine white's support of b4. White's meeting d4 with c takes d4, knight b4 can be a disruptive move for sure. The bishop has a watchful eye over these 2 points. From here, rook e8, queenside castles, opposite sides castles game. This is move 12 coming up here for black. Very important moment. This is a 40 move game. Critical middle game moment right here. How would you continue? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, black blunders here, plays e4. Working on this pinned knight. The top move, d4. This is a very sharp line I'm putting on here. The idea is not to take the knight and then swipe the pawn. You're in a pin there, and it could be exploited with queen c3, for instance. It wants knight e4 here. Justifies an earlier move. Restriction on the queen. Also, f6 has opened up for the black queen. See why that's important soon enough. If bishop d3, you could take on d4 if white's trying to challenge this piece straight away. And if d5, computer essentially saying you could work around this giant pawn mass in the center. In response to d5, there's queen f6, and now white would be in an only move situation. Queen b2 is the only move here. If you take the knight, there's queen a1 check, queen captures bishop check, a disaster for white. Also, if the bishop backs off, there's queen f4 check, followed by knight b4. Look at these invasive pieces. With this line, the queen is officially kicked from defending f2. This is a winning position for black. Okay. In response to queen f6, I pointed out queen b2, the only move. It likes knight e5 here, calls it about equal. Black down 2 pawns, calls it equal. Significant difference with king safety here. A lot of pieces clearly still on board. Much healthier black king. That's the main compensation for black here. king safety. Wild line right there. Black doesn't come up with d4 in this position. We have e4, white's way out of the pin, h3, and the bishop falls back to e6 here. If you're capturing the knight, this is not good news for black, allowing this open line, h line. Similarly, if the bishop backs off here, you could expect g4, pawn takes bishop, have an open g file. Open h file or g file is going to be good news for white. So bishop unpins the knight, pawn takes pawn, knight doesn't have to budge just yet. Knight captures pawn. Pop quiz, what is your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, we have here c4 working on the pinned knight. This is top. This is a winning path for white. Now, if queen captures pawn, there's queen a5, you're out of a pin. This would be winning, just like that for black. c3 ready to collapse, bishop ready to fall, c3 hit twice, defended 0. Huge problem here for the white king, very weak. The winning way is with c4. Now, if pawn takes knight, there's pawn takes knight. Let's see what this looks like. In the game, queen f6 is played, but if we're going for this sequence, this is not good news here for black. Simply recapture, you got the open file. Unopposed dark square bishop, this is going to hurt. Dark square problems, also this is a problem. Still in a pin. Not a good idea to collect the knight. We have here queen f6, another pop quiz, what is your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, white is winning here, but doesn't find the way. Ends up playing bishop b2 to cut out the check on a1. After bishop b2, evaluation is about +1. Here's the top line, and is it ever wild? It says take the knight, allow the check, allow the bishop to be picked up, and take the bishop. Not just because the bishop is generally more valuable than the knight, but because this is in the air, with a fork, attracting the king to a more vulnerable square f7, where it is accessible to the knight, bishop, queen, each just to move away from landing a check. It runs deeper. If pawn takes knight in this position, there is pawn takes with check, king takes, bishop check, and careful where you go with the king. King back, queen f5 is there. That's a disaster. You would have to step up. And this position is lost for black. More vulnerable king. White king going to be nice and cozy on e2. Okay, let's test out something slightly different at this moment here. After the capture, suppose there's a check. It says block with the knight. And after knight takes knight, you could recapture and meet rook captures pawn with king e2. If king e1, there's a check on b4. King forced to e2. King e2 here, it says white is winning, but certainly uncomfortable. How are you completing kingside development? That's one of the questions that certainly springs to mind as white, even though you're up the piece. Now, what I was a little bit curious about at this moment right here, when black takes on d4 with this line, is this not a window for white to now insert pawn captures pawn check? And I was really surprised with the line I stumbled upon after king h8. I'll touch on that soon enough. Most people are recapturing here straight away, because next up you're ready to drop the rook with check. But if you do play in this way, king captures pawn, now there's a check. And you could save the knight here, go into a pin, land a discovery check, but after king e2, things are perfect for white. Rooks are connected. Black is in a pin, white is up a pawn, another one ready to fall. This is winning for white. Check this out, however. After inserting this check, if the king goes to the corner, you could give up this rook, and now there would only be one move for white that keeps this winning. It points out queen b1. Covering, I imagine, this check on b4. What would be the problem capturing the knight here? Black would be winning. Black is down a rook and a bishop. Who cares? There's e3, and everything comes together now on the z3 square. Beautiful line. Pawn takes pawn, queen captures pawn, mate. Your other options, moving the king to one of these two. Let's pick this one. Double check, yet again, mate. Okay, there's some really pretty lines with this game that are only ever right around the corner, it seems. All right, what we have in this one, no pawn captures knight. It's bishop b2, and we see a pretty much a forcing line here. This one's going to liquidate significantly from here. We see the queens come off. Knight, bishop exchange, knight improvement, avoided. c4 in the crosshairs, defended. c5 under fire. From here, knight b3. After knight b3, it's pretty much completely equal. It says the top line to keep this close to +1 around 0.8. Jumpy knight variation. I'm going to call this one knight b5 is what it wants. Meeting rook captures pawn with this fork. Meeting rook b8 with another fork. Back off the rook, and from here it's looking at rook d8 plus 0.8. If knight captures pawn, there's a counterattack. Knight check, counterattack. In that position, either minor piece can collect c4. Only 2 defenders, 3 attackers. Okay, white does not end up playing knight b5. It's knight b3, knight d7, and from here, rook d4 going after e4. If king b4, there's a cute move here with the knight going back home. Ready to play knight a6, giving the king a kick away from c5, collecting it in that way. Moving up to b5, still trying to stay defending the pawn is very risky. There's still plenty of fuel around to cause the king a problem. For instance, a rook lift with bishop d7. That post will be questioned. White does not play in this way. We have rook d4. Knight captures pawn. Knight captures knight. Rook captures knight. Rook captures pawn. Rook a5. King b4. Pop quiz. What's your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, the idea here is not to just glue in the rook. There's a trick. Rook captures a4. King captures rook. Bishop d7. Check. Discovered attack. You get the piece back. And this is an equal position from here. Rook a1. Bishop c6. From here, we have rook captures pawn and bishop captures pawn. Now, just a word of caution, if these 2 pawns stick around, if let's say g3 is played and then a6, and white offers a rook exchange, would you exchange rooks here or not? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, if you exchange rooks, you're lost. It's very important to keep this rook around. To interfere with this king entering into this b6 square, here's why it's important. It says rook e6 here. Keep the rook on. If you exchange rooks, this is a lost ending. King is out of play. Before it could improve towards the center, probably want to hang on to that pawn. Otherwise, that guy's going to run. So let's say a6 or h6. King improvement, c5, there's already a trick. b7 is overloaded. And you can't really stay defending b7 here. Bishop here, there's e4. Bishop is cut off from defending here. It's all going to collapse. Bishop here, bishop kicked, and there's where we could see a trick. My point, it's very important to keep the rooks on at this point right here with this line. Rook e6 is cool. King c5 in this position, by the way, white would be losing. b6 with the fork. King takes pawn, bishop e4, discovered, check. Okay. We don't end up seeing the offer of a rook exchange. These pawns end up being swiped. Rook a1, bishop takes h3, rook h1, there goes the h7 pawn, and we are balanced with the material. Nothing exciting happening from here. King nice and central. Follow-up from here is rook h6. If rook b8, king c7. And if rook f8, bishop e8 is cool. It's not a great inconvenience to have the rook have the responsibility to defend the bishop. This point is covered. You have 2 squares to operate on if ever challenged. And there's nothing really here for white. Rook over, improve the king. You're only ever a step away from defending this f6 pawn. Okay, we don't see rook b8 in this position. We have rook h6, king e7, rook h8, and what do we have here? A repetition of position. This game ends peacefully after 40 moves. Very sharp game here out of the Nimzo-Indian. What are your thoughts with this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.